Right, welcome everyone. This is the next in our instalment advanced webinar series. We are going to be looking at developing numeracy using Just2easy for early years and Key Stage 1. Now, despite what my window probably says, I'm not Mary McClory. I have borrowed her login details. My name's Nikki Kimball. I'm one of the educational consultants on the education team at Just2easy. Now, Mary is in the background as Jenny Smith, so she is there to answer any questions that you might have as we go along throughout the session. Now, in terms of session housekeeping, it is a 45-minute session. Those of you that have been on my webinars know that that is likely I will run over by 5 minutes. I've got so much content for this. So if you do need to leave at any time, please feel free. The session is being recorded and will be posted onto YouTube. Either tonight or tomorrow, where we host all of our webinars, so they're all accessible there. If you do have any questions throughout the session, you can ask those via the chat. As I said, Mary is in the background. She's able to answer any questions that you might have. I will also be doing a Q&A session at the end of the training. So if you do have anything you want to ask, you are more than welcome. So today's session, we're going to look at why you should use digital tools to support numeracy skills and which J2E tools you can use to support numeracy in your classroom. So as part of that, I am going to be showcasing some of the tools and activities that you can use. So I'm going to look at creating activities directly from some of our tools, including Pictogram, Chart, Mix. Those are all part of our JIT toolkit. I'm also going to look at TT Blast. Now, I know times tables don't necessarily come into Key Stage 1, but it might be good if you are a maths lead to have that awareness. That is a tool that is available. And we've also got Sats Blast that has been brand newly, that I've completely invented a phrase there. It's just been updated in the last week. So we're looking for some feedback on that. I'm also going to showcase how to import existing worksheets using J2 PDF. Measuring tools in J2E5, and then I'm going to do a resource library activity showcase for all the maths activities that we have ready to use, and then a Q&A session at the end. So lots to get through. Now, in terms of accessing Just2easy, it is any device, anywhere. You can access us through j2e.com. Now, I know that we have a lot of teachers from different areas of the UK and beyond. So you will need to log in your usual manner. So if you're a London school, you would use your LGFL login. If you are a C2K school, you can use your C2K login and clicking on the EA button there. If you're one of our Welsh schools, you can use the Hub button. Our Scottish schools can use their Glow credentials and log in via the RM Unify button. And our Entrust schools can use the Launch button. And of course, if you're a manual school, you can use your usual manual login. Now, all of those managed services will have a J2E tool within them. So you could log into your usual managed service and you can find us within those. Okay. Now, numeracy in the digital age. I'm not a maths teacher. In fact, I'm not very good at maths, full stop. So get rid of my cat in the background. So what I'm going to show you today is just my understanding of numeracy, but I was quite thorough in my research of numeracy, and I looked at these two research documents in particular, and they actually have some conclusive evidence that digital technologies can support and improve educational attainment in numeracy and maths. So this publication in particular was made for very interesting reading, and this was done for the Scottish Government, interestingly enough. And the key things that I pulled out of that were using digital resources provides learners with more time for active learning in the classroom. The digital tools and resources provide more opportunity for active learning outside of the classroom as well, so the students can go home and practice things at home. They can have those self-directed spaces such as blogs and forums and access to games with a learning benefit. So that's why we're looking at TT and Sats Blast today. Digital resources provide learners with opportunities to choose the learning resources suited to their needs, and it allows you as a teacher to select activities that are suited to their needs as well. You can differentiate activities quite easily. The resources provide a safe space for formative assessment and feedback as well. And then this one was done by the Education Endowment Fund, so quite an important body. And they looked at using technology to support numeracy skills, and they found that it can be very effective as a short but focused intervention to improve learning. So they looked at frequent use, so about 3 times a week over the course of a term, 5 to 10 weeks. They actually found sustained use over a longer period is less effective at improving attainment. Who knew? And also in researched interventions, technology is best used as a supplement to normal teaching rather than a replacement for it. So don't worry, I'm not going to get some AI teacher in. These are all to support the teaching that you're doing in class. So it's great for that consolidation of knowledge and understanding. So if you do get a chance, I'm sure you've got loads of time in your busy teaching life. So have a look at those research papers if you ever get a spare minute. They do make for interesting reading, to be fair. So just to summarize, why use digital tools to develop numeracy? So digital tools can provide that individualized environment with a personalized level of support and scaffolding. So you can put things in place using Just2easy for particular students. So things like word lists and measuring tools. You can set activities for smaller groups of students, so you can have students working at different levels. The tools themselves incorporate a range of different modalities, so things like audio and visual. The tools allow you as teachers the opportunity to provide better and more structured feedback. So you can do that by offering up learning conversations through your My Files area and through the pupil files. Technology integration can influence students' motivation and engagement levels. So a lot of research has gone towards looking at this, and it does have a positive effect on students' motivation. It offers a student a safe space to see, explore, and interact with mathematical concepts. And the use of technology helps to reduce inequalities and promote inclusion. Okay, enough of all of that. So just to highlight our YouTube channel, it is a wealth of knowledge. There's a lot of webinars. This one is being recorded and will be added. So if you want to share this with colleagues, you can. It will be live by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. But there are a whole host of different webinars. So we did some writing webinars. There's some live lessons in there where we teach the class for you. There's little quick bite 15-minute webinars and little tips and tricks that are 2 minutes long. So please have a look at that and feel free to subscribe if you want to. Now a little quick how-to. You can set up teaching classes. I'm not going to showcase this. There is a video on YouTube about how to do this if you wanted to know. So depending on how you are set up, most of you, I think, are joining us from a managed service where the registration classes are already created. So you'll have your green classes. So those are, the classes of 30 students. But what we can do is set up smaller groups. So this is great if you've got separate groups within your numeracy or your maths groups. So you could have a higher, middle, a lower, table groups, I don't know, dolphins, whales and sharks, or whatever it is that you've called your groups. You can set up those groups really quickly and easily, and it makes sharing of tasks a lot easier. So that's what we're talking about, being able to identify and provide activities for levels for certain students. I'm afraid my cat is just going to feature in this webinar, I'm afraid. So apologies if you can see her in the background. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to showcase TT Blast. Now, I'm well aware that this doesn't really feature in the maths curriculum, or it does, but at a very low level. The difficulty with, funnily enough, the difficulty with planning this webinar was that the various different curriculum in different areas is very different. So the English curriculum is actually a lot more, it expects a lot more of students at a younger age than the Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish curriculum. So this may be appropriate more towards the English curriculum than others. But we do have something called TT Blast. So this allows children to practice their times tables. And that can be found here in our Blast games. And we have TT Blast here. Now students can go live, so that will track according to AI and gets progressively more difficult. But the students can also have a practice, so they can click here and they can select a level. So it starts with the 2 times tables. I think it goes up to 10s, then 5s. So they can choose a level, up to 5s, then 2 5s, 10s, and there we go. And then it starts with division as well. So it's not just times tables. So they can choose a level to start at. It is noisy app, so make sure your volume's turned down in classrooms if you're using this, or invest in headphones. Then they click continue, and then I'm trying to think of my times tables, I should know this. So they follow the times tables as they go along. So it's quick and easy. As a maths lead, you can collate some data. So whenever a student has a go at the times tables, their data will save into this area. So this is the feedback area. It allows you access to your students' scores. So I've only really had one student have a go at this, and that is Lottie, but she's in class 1. So the more classes that have a go, the more data that you will collect. So I can have a look at class 1. It's just Lottie at the moment, I'm afraid. But we can look at Lottie, and that's going to tell me how many she got correct versus how many she got wrong. I can have a look at the attempted, the speed, and the level that she's at. So there is some useful data that comes through from that. The other one that we've got, other than TT Blast, is SATS Blast. Now, I know you don't do SATS in Key Stage 1 anymore. We are looking at renaming this potentially to Maths Blast instead. Now, this is more about addition, subtraction, and number bonds. So we've updated the levels. We had a look at this last week and we were a little bit surprised at how high the levels were. So we have changed the levels. So again, this looks exactly the same as it did with TT Blast. They take a test. I would leave the take a test. That is probably your end of year 2, potentially end of or P3, potentially a bit older maybe. But this area, have a practice. Again, they can select the level that they're at. So this is what we have changed recently. So we've got level 1, which is the addition of numbers up to 10, moving upwards, addition and subtraction to 10. So they can choose a level that is appropriate for them. So they can choose. There's also number bonds, I think. There we go. Number bonds to 20 from level 7. So we can press that. So there we go. So they can start practicing their number bonds. And again, you're going to collect some data from that using that feedback button there. So please let us know. Let us know what you think. So that is TT Blast and SATS Blast Key Stage 1. We're going to have a look at some of our data programs now. So JIT Pictogram and JIT Chart. They work in very similar ways. They allow you to choose existing templates or create your own. You can edit the templates, you can lock the templates, and you can share with students to use as a whole class if you wanted to. So just to show you how this works, JIT is here. And JIT is our infant toolkit, is a collection of 8 tools within the toolkit. There are different tabs and they all have different colours. So the 2 that we're going to focus on are Pictogram and Chart. So as I said, you can choose a template. So there are some preset ones. These are sort of commonly used pictogram activities. So things like, what pets have you got? What fruit do we like to eat? What mini beasts have we seen? How do we get to school? So let's go with how do we get to school? So here's our journey. It is at the moment, we are locked with this template. So if students were to use this, they could just add into the pictogram itself, but not change the template pictogram. So to edit the template, just tick that box that says edit. That's going to allow us to either remove or add boxes at the bottom. So I'm going to add another box. I'm going to add in a scooter. So I'm going to click add, and that's added that box for us. Now I've got my drawing tools along the left-hand side. If you've used Paint, they'll be familiar. So we could, if you're really ambitious, draw a scooter, but probably the preferred way of doing this would be to search for an image. So we've got our clip art library, so I can click here where it says Halloween, so that's our current default clip art library. And I could look in transport, which is one of our libraries, transport. So I don't know if there's a scooter. I don't think there is. It's a motorbike. So if there isn't the image that you want, there is the option to do a Google search. So let's look for scooter. There we go. Oh, it's not letting me look for scooter. Well, that's fun, isn't it? Should have tested this out. Right, okay. In that case, let's go for horse riding. I mean, who rides horses to school? But just for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to add in horse riding. And there we go. I'm going to select this one here. So we've got our person riding their horse instead of scooting. I don't know why it wouldn't let me use scooting. So I'm going to click on the horse and I'm going to add that into that box. Now, depending on what device you're using, that can be a bit fiddly. The smaller the device, that can be very fiddly. But you don't have to hover that over that box. You can just hover in the area above it. So can you see as I hover over each column, that sort of red box. So that shows me which box I'm editing. So I can just click and that's going to add that into that particular box. And then I'm going to change my label. So I'm going to say horseback. I travel by horseback. There we go. And that's my template edited. So I could, if I wanted to, so travel to school. I can save that. Now I could get students coming up to the board and adding their mode of transport each, like this. Okay. Or I can share it with them to use individually. So to do that, you go through your My Files. There's that pictogram, travel to school. I can click on that green circle, which is the information button, and I can go to share. And then I can share either with a class or an individual by using this drop-down menu. There's my registration class, so I can share with them. There's also individual users, and if you want to share with another class, you've got your all classes and you've got your teaching classes there. So that's what I was saying about setting up your teaching classes. Is worthwhile setting those up, because it does make sharing of resources a lot easier, because you can fine tune which students get which particular resource. So there we go, and my students can access that through the shared files area on their Launchpad, which is there. Okay. So that is a pictogram. Chart works in a very similar way. So I'm going to go back to my JIT page and I'm going to go to chart. Again, it's going to prompt me to choose a template. So I've got colours, days, months, boys versus girls, but let's choose a blank one, for example. So let's go for favourite fruits. So I'm going to add the item. So let's change this column title. Let's say fruit. And I'm going to add apple, and I'm just going to hit enter, and that's going to allow me to edit what's in that particular row. Cherry and pear. There we go. I can change the numbers, and it auto updates at the same time, so they can see that data coming in. They can change the colour of that block of data. So banana, that's got to be yellow. Cherry's got to be red. And pear, let's make that brown. So there we go. And then we can tick the different chart types. So we could have a look at a bar chart. We can look at a pie chart. Or a line chart. So we can have all 4 different chart types together, We can see how the data looks best. You can take the table away if you wanted to. You could even just have a few charts next to each other so they can see how the data looks best. Once they're done, they can click save. Obviously they would rename, so save fruits in class, and hit save, and that's going to save into their My Files. Now another nice thing about JIT is that save button will grey out, so they can only save one copy of that unless they were to make any changes. So if they change something, they could obviously save that again. It does mean that you don't end up with 20 copies of the same file. And the other thing you can do is this button here, which is save as image. So that will just save that chart on its own, and it means that you can then use it in other other softwares such as J2E5, J2 Writer, and J2 Present. You could use this as well. So you can click that again. It's going to save, and it will grey out. It should grey out. It hasn't, but it should. So that is JIT chart. This is a bit of a tenuous link, but I was thinking about directional positional language, and it's a great way of building in with your computational thinking as well. So Turtle is around coding, but you know, it's the same as using a Bbot. You can use your lefts, your rights, your forwards, your backwards. Great for that directional language. There are templates that they can use. Now these actually are starting with the simplest and moving up in complexity. So Cinderella is our most complex template. They can also create their own if they wanted to. But I'm going to go with the Big Bad Wolf just for now. And we've got our Big Bad Wolf. So we've got our pen down function. So anything that we click on here with our algorithms or our instructions will list here. And then we've got our directions. So we could say, right, we need to go forwards. We need to go forwards again. Do we need to go right or left? So we could go right. That's going to turn in real time. And then they need to have a think about, you know, it's still the forwards, even though it's turned to the right. So they still need to think about their directional language, and they can maneuver that around the screen there. They can move these algorithms. So if they have programmed it incorrectly, or just to see how that changes the outcome. So let's change this right and move it down a little bit. We can press play and we can see. They could even predict that outcome and see if it has the same effect. So that's completely changed that outcome there. So it's great for the problem solving and the logical reasoning of your students as well. There is a simple version and an advanced version, so great for differentiation of tasks. You might have some students working at the simple, some students working at the advanced. The only difference is the advanced, the sprite doesn't move until they press play. So they have to predict where it's going to end up. So, and that would save in the same way. That saves, and it saves straight into their My Files. So that's well worth a look for your directional positional languages. Okay, I'm going to talk about JIT Mix now. So JIT Mix is an ebook creator. So I just thought, you know, creating a maths ebook in JIT Mix. So I've got these 3D shapes. And I just used that as a picture and then had them talk about the 3D shapes, the different properties those shapes had. Obviously, you could use this for anything. You could use this for data analysis. They could create their own charts, their own pictograms, and then analyse the data within the text box. Obviously, that's a big part of the maths curriculum. It's not just collecting the data, it's analysing it as well. So this is just to give you a general idea of how JIT Mix works. So JIT Mix is here. Now it's slightly different from the other tools in that it incorporates the other tools. So you have to choose, first of all, a page layout. So the ones that I personally like are these ones with text. It really depends on what your book is about and what you're using your book for. But for this particular book, I'm going to use one with text. So when you've selected your page layout, then you have a think about which tool you want to use. So the tool in the middle, you see the blue here, that correlates to the blue tool, which is Paint. So for example, maybe I want a chart page, so I can use those arrows, and that is now a chart page. So you can choose any of the 7 tools and to add text around it. So this is really good for, you know, getting students to create content and then talk about it. Or it could be that they've created a painting and they start a storybook. It could be they've got their data analysis book. It could be that they've created a branching database and they talk about that data. So there's lots of uses for this. Now, because I'm doing a 3D tool book, I'm going to choose a paint page and then I'm going to hit tick. So now I can use all my paint tools that I'm able to use in paint here. And I'm also, if I click in this box, I've got all the tools that I would have in JIT Write. So I've got my font, my text size, my text color, and also my word lists as well. I'm going to start with my painting, and I'm just going to add a fill color to my background. There we go. And then I'm going to add my shape on top. Now I do actually have some shapes in my files. There are some shapes in a shape clip art library, but they are all 2D at the moment. I have asked for the 3D shapes to be added, so watch this space. Just double check it. No, they haven't been added. So I'm going to look in my files. I'm wondering if it hasn't been added. Let's go for cube. No. So I can do a Google search and let's look for a cube. There we go. So I've got a cube. I've got various cubes that I could choose. So I could layer these up. So I could say, well, that's a cube. And I could add multiple different styles of cubes. Obviously a Rubik's cube. So I could add that in. And you'll notice it keeps that keyword locked into that search until I change it. So the students can just keep adding, keep looking at things. So let's go for an ice cube, and there we go. And then I'm going to type out my cube. So cubes have 12. Good, I have to check. 12 sides and 6 faces. It's been a long day. And 6 faces. There we go. Obviously they would fill in more details into that. There we go. I can add multiple pages. So again, I could have a different style of page. I could have a different tool as well. So I could do a pictogram maybe, or an animation, but I'm going to stick with paint. You can also add in existing paint documents. So if you've already created it in paint and saved it, you can add that in there. So just choosing that little load button at the top. You can also add in pupil files. So if you are working with early years, maybe you've got various pictograms or content that they've created, you can create compilations of pupil files as well. Okay, so just for this demo, I'm going to fill this and let's add in a pyramid this time. There we go. So I'm going to add that in. I don't want a pyramid, do I? Do I want a pyramid? Pyramid, I want a 3D pyramid. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to add my 3D pyramid instead. There we go. Let's add some pyramids. And there we go. And then obviously you could add in your typing there. And then we would save, same as we have done with our other JIT files, and that's going to save into their my files. Now just to highlight, because it might not be obvious, it might not be something that you're using, when your pupils have saved content, you can access that as a teacher through the pupil files area. So if I click on my pupil files, I've got all my classes. So the green ones are registration classes, the purple ones are maths, not maths classes, they're teaching groups. I was looking at the maths group, that's why I read that. So you can open that up. So there we go. I've got the 5 users in my maths class. There's Harry. He's had a go at J2 Blast. Well done, Harry. And these are all his presentations. So this is a pictogram that he's done. So this is what I was talking about, being able to give structured and detailed feedback to your students. You can click on any of these pieces of work and you can have a look at that. So yeah, fab. Well done. Great pictogram. So you can use that little speech bubble there, and that enters into a learning conversation. So that's a 2-way discussion with you and that student, Just be mindful it is a three-way conversation if you are using the parent portal, so parents will be able to see these conversations. And I can offer some feedback, so I could say, great start. Can you tell me the most popular device at home? There we go. We've got some questioning. Harry can respond to that. He can answer that. He can ask me questions. I could say to him, can you offer me 2 stars and a wish, or whichever particular assessment tool it is that you're using. So there we go. So that is how you would offer up some feedback about that particular piece of work. You can also track against other curriculum. So for example, if you are a C2K school, you can use this drop-down menu. The SEER tasks, the SEER progression framework is loaded, and we can have a look at maths. I can choose a level, so I could say that's level 3, for example, or maybe not, level 2. And I can find the particular strategy. So that was shape, space, and measure. So no, it wasn't. It was, I can't remember what it was. I'm just going to tick some. So you can tick which particular targets that piece of work has hit. And you will be able to, once there are numbers there, you can click on those numbers, and that's going to showcase to you how many pieces of work have hit that particular target. So if there are multiple pieces of work, you can see if a student is secure at that level, whether they're just, you know, starting at that level, or whether you can move them on to a different level. Okay, so that's a great way of sort of keeping an overview of how students are doing. Right, the measuring tools in J2E5. These are brilliant. There are some resources in the library that use this, but you can create your own. So J2E5 is, and I say this about all the tools, but it probably is my favorite tool. It's the tool that I use for all my presentations, and it is quite underused. But what we can do is we can add any image, any text. So for example, I want to create an activity for my students to complete. So I'm going to say, can you measure these objects? I can double click that text. It would help if I could spell that properly, wouldn't it? There we go, objects. So I can double click and I can move that around. I can make it bigger, make it smaller, change the font. But then I've got this button here, which is my pictures, and I'm going to add in some basic objects. So let's go for a ball. When I found it, I can drag that in. I might look for a pen. Now, if it isn't, it will load into your My Files. If it isn't there, you can use that Google search there, same as we did in JIT, and we can drag that object onto the page. There we go, and let's go for a cup, and I'm going to drag that onto the page. There we go. I can click on these objects and I can resize. I can also rotate to make it a little bit easier for them to measure. I can move that around. Again, I'm going to make that much bigger. I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger. Now, what I would do if I was setting this as an activity for my students to do, I would lock these to the page. That means the students can't then move those objects. So to do that, you highlight the objects. So just click and drag over the objects that you want to lock to the page. And then you've got this little tick box that says lock. So that now means that I can add text over the top, means the students can't move those objects. So it's great when you're creating your own resources. Okay. You can unlock things. So to unlock, you double click and then you just tick that unlock box. And then our measuring tools are here under this little compass. We've got 3 to choose from. We've got your ruler, your protractor, and your compass. So I'm going to click, and that's going to add my ruler, and I can use that for measuring. Now, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can fill your ruler if you want to, if that makes it a little bit easier. and you can make that ruler longer or shorter. Okay, so there we go. Now the other thing that we could do to make things a little bit easier for our students is, instead of using a ruler, they can use the line drawing tool, and they can draw. So they can draw from the biggest point, they can draw the widest points. Then if they use that selector tool and click on the line, they've also got the option to show length. So that's a great way, maybe get the students to try measuring it first, and then they can actually answer their own questions. They can check their own answers without relying on you to mark it. I mean, obviously you would mark it, but it just gives them that little bit of independence to be able to check their own work. Okay, and then we would save that. So measuring objects, I'm going to put 3 because I'm sure I've done that before. And that's saved into my files. If I want my students to access that as an activity, you can do this within J2E5. You can share that with your students. So there we go. So they now have access to that through the shared files area. Okay, so that's the measuring tools. We have various worksheets that are in that similar theme in the library. So just look for measuring and you'll find loads. Using existing worksheets. I've got 7 minutes to get this done. This could be a very speedy end of my webinar, as always. I'm sure you have plenty of worksheets that you normally print out and hand out to students and have them hand in. You can make these PDFs interactive using J2 PDF. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to open up J2 PDF, which is here. And I've got my PDF ready to go. So this is a number bonds PDF. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it onto here, and that's going to open it. And there we go. That has stitched that to a J2E5 background. It's already locked it to the background, so I can add anything over the top. And there we go. That's ready for my number bonds. So that's how quick and easy that was. So if you've got any salamander maths things, any twinkle activities, you can add those to J2 PDF. Then all you need to do is to save. So number bonds worksheet. There we go. I'm going to save that. Now it will do that for every page. So this is a multi-page PDF. So you can see there's multiple pages. And then I share that with my students. So now, and I should have done this beforehand, bear with me just to show you how a student would access that. Lottie is in my class. There we go. So she would access that by clicking on shared files. She ticks that list files box. There is that number bonds worksheet. So she can click that. She has to click edit, but then she can click anywhere. So 2 plus 8 equals 10. 2 plus 18 equals 20. And she can go through that worksheet. And she saves that. So she saves her edited version. So now, as a teacher, that content can be found in the pupil files. So if I go to Lottie, she's in class 1. There she is. There's that number bond sheet. I can open it up and I can see all the edits that she's made. So it's going to save you on printing. It's going to save you on time. And it makes marking quite a lot easier. So there you go. So that is how you can use existing worksheets. Right, I've got my library activity showcase now. The majority of you will have access to this. Unfortunately, Welsh Schools and Hub, you won't have access to the library. Sorry. But these are all activities that are pre-made, ready for you to share. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a couple of them and how you can share those with your students. So tracing numbers. This is the number 2, so that's what it's listed as. This is loaded into the library. you'll have the activity. You might have teacher attachments depending on the activity itself. You can click on that activity, you can see if it's appropriate for your students. So this one, they need a green number and they trace. That's brilliant if you've got touch screens, so things like iPads, that works really well because they can actually use their finger. They could even use a stylus if you have them. If you don't, it might be worth investing. I bought a class set of 30 and I think they were like £1 each. And it was really good actually, because it meant that they could practice their pincer grip, they could practice their shape formation. Brilliant. But I digress. I'm going to leave that. So if you do like that resource, you've got the option to like. So you can star it and that will save into your liked resources area. So if you've got something that you see, I don't know what that, there we go. So there's that number 2. And it means you can share it at a later date. Let me go back to that. Oh, just go back to that. If you want your students to access it, you have to share it with them. So you can click share, and I'm going to share with my class. So now they have access to that through the library. So just to show you on Lottie's account, she would then go to the library, and there is that particular resource that I have selected for her. She can open that up. Any edits she makes, she saves, and it saves a copy into her My Files. And you've also got the option to share that as homework as well. Okay, so we have tracing activities for all of the numbers. There are counting activities. So these are fab. You can see this one, you drag the numbers onto the objects to represent which physical number represents the objects. This one, they have to drag the objects onto the page. So the relevant number of objects are 4 purple fish, 10 rainbow fish. So these are great for the beginnings of numeracy. We've got making groups. So again, these are draggable activities. So make 6, and they just drag extra objects on. Now these are in J2E5 in the view mode. So once they have changed it, they go to edit and then they save, and that saves a copy into their My Files. Okay, I'm going to close some of these screens down because I'm going to get confused. There we go. I am going to run a little bit over, so if people do need to go, I fully understand, but I'm not going to be much longer, I promise. I'm just going to showcase some of these activities. Repeating patterns. We have a whole raft of these, and we've just done some seasonal ones. So there are some for Halloween. I know that people are keen on Halloween at the moment. There's some for Christmas, and there's some generic ones. So if you just look for repeating patterns in the library, so when you go to community, if you just search here, patterns, there's a whole host of them ready for you to use. Other activities that we've got, ordering numbers, so they can move these numbers around and order them in the correct ascending order. These ones, you drag the next number in the series. We've got some addition activity, so some column addition, some domino addition. Yeah, some of them I have been making so many maths resources this week, it's been insane. So there should be a huge amount more than there were this time last week. So even if you looked last week and thought, nah, there's not been many, I think there's probably about 30 extra this week already. I've done some subtracting numbers. So we've got some pictorial ones as well as some domino subtraction. Hundreds, tens and units. We've also got tens and units. So if you're not working at hundreds level, so there's tens and units, and then it increases to hundreds. We've got number bonds activities. So we've got seasonal ones. So I hate to see the C word, but Christmas is coming. So there's a Christmas number bonds. They can click here and they can add their answers. There we go. And there is also, I think, a blank template for that in the resource library. So you can create your own as well. Geometry. There's lots of geometry activities. So you can drag the objects into the relevant object, color the shape. There's also 2D and 3D sorting activities. Symmetry. So these are done in Paint. So the students then have to create their own symmetrical Christmas tree. So they add the dot where it should be. They can, of course, make that brush smaller. So that's too small, so they can make it bigger. There we go. So then they add it in the right place. There we go, nice and interactive. That is the same. In fact, they're all the same. Fraction resources. So they have to colour in the quarters or the halves or the thirds or the 3/4. And again, these are done through JIT Paint. So you use the fill tool. So here we go. Use the fill tool, and then we fill in half, a third, a quarter, 2/6, 3/4. They can, of course, change the colour if they wanted to. And there you go. And then they can save that as evidence. Time resources. I've done a whole host of these because I realised there weren't very many time resources. So we've got telling the time, so digital clock. I've only done hour and half hour. I am working on the 15-minute increments as well. Telling the time and also showing the time. Now, showing the time is slightly more complex. So I will probably use this for your year 2s, maybe year 3s, which is your P3s, P4s. Now, the only reason I say that is because they have to have the ability to be able to understand how to turn these hands around, and they have to be able to use this rotate function, okay, which can be a little bit fiddly. So 4:30, you would use the rotate, and obviously it's not just going to be at 4, is it? It has to be a little bit further round. So the further you drag it out to the side, the more precise you can be. And there we go, there's 4:30. And that is a multi-page document. So they can show the time. Ordering days of the week, so they can drag those. Money, so there's using exact change and giving change. Again, these are draggable resources, so they have to drag the money. So that is £1.20. So they can drag the coins. There we go, £3. And obviously they can use different combinations of those coins. So it's great for their money work, great for their adding up skills as well, addition. And giving change, that works in exactly the same way. And then these were just other activities. So these are Halloween sums. Again, we've only just done these. So using the symbols to solve the maths problem. So that really is your higher level higher year 2s, your P3s, your P4s. So that's a nice activity. And comparing numbers to 20, so they can use their more than, equals, and less than symbols. Okay, so that's me all done, and only 5 minutes over. So thank you if you have hung around. Just to highlight, we are on Facebook. Have a look for us, Just2easy. We're also on Twitter, or should I say X? I need to change that symbol. X, formerly known as Twitter. Look for us, Just2easy_com. And YouTube, we are on YouTube. So that is where all of our webinars are posted, all of our how-tos, all of our help videos. There's videos on how to set up your teaching classes, all sorts. So please give us a look, give us a subscribe. And yeah, so thank you very much. Before I ask if there's any questions, I will be sending out an email tonight just to ask for some feedback. The feedback form takes about 3 minutes flat. So we really appreciate any feedback that you have about these webinars. Really helps us to direct how we deliver our webinars. So I'm just going to see if there are any questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them in the chat, and I am going to try and answer them now if we have any. So let's have a look. You're very welcome. How I can see Mary's, she's well on it. So there is a video about how to create your own teaching classes, and that is on YouTube, but there is also a link in the chat if you need it. So brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us. Would I show how to share a pictogram? I will. So if anybody wants to know how to share a pictogram template with other classes, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to find my pictogram that I created earlier, which is in my files. Here we go. So here's my travel to school. So I've edited my template. So to share that with classes, you have to do that through your My Files. Okay, so you make sure that you save your template, so I can see that that is saved. And then from my Files, I go to that I hover over that piece of work and I go to that green circle. So this is for sharing any piece of work, not just your templates. This is for J2E5 files. This is for photos, videos, coding, whatever it is that you want. Then I can go to share. And then this brings up my share box. You can use this little, I'm just going to zoom in, little drop down, 2 double arrows. I can never remember what to call it. You've got different options there. So you can share with your registration class. Now, if you're a C2K user, that will probably say staff because of the way that C2K is set up. So for you to access your registration class, you would then go to all classes and your class will be listed in that list. But you can, as I said, set up your teaching classes and you could share with just a certain part of your registration class. So that's my maths group. And they will retain access to that until you remove it. So if you did want to remove it, just press that X and that removes that. And they would access that. So just to show you, if you've shared a file from your My Files, they would access it through the shared files area here. They would go to list files and it's because I removed access. So the pictogram should be there if I hadn't removed access, which was a bit silly of me. So yes, real. You're very welcome. If anybody else has got any other questions, feel free. What I will say is so for the Welsh users, my understanding is you don't have access to the library, but if you have seen any resources that you like today, just email me. I'm going to write my email down and I can send you some links to those resources. So you should be able to access them as soon as you've got that link. You just don't have access to the library, unfortunately. And we're hoping it might change soon. So please keep an eye out for that. We will announce it on all of our facials, on all our socials like Facebook. Oh my goodness. If you put a twinkle sheet on, does it need to be a PDF? Yes, for J2 PDF, it needs to be a PDF. If it is a Word document, you can convert it to PDF, and that can actually be done in J2 Writer, not JIT Write, J2 Writer. I'm more than happy to show you how to do that if you have a couple of minutes to watch. So, Brill, I can do that. I've got to find a Word document. So let me just find, bear with me. I haven't got any. Here we go, story plan. So for argument's sake, this was a Twinkle Word document. What I can do is I can convert it to PDF. So to do that, you load, so you drag your Word document into this Dropbox so that it is in your My Files, and then you open it from your My Files, okay? Then you go up to File, and you click this that says PDF. So what that will do, that's gone to my downloads file now on my computer. So then I can open up my J2 PDF, and then I open up my downloads folder, and there's that download. Then I drag that onto J2 PDF, and that's going to load that as a PDF in J2 PDF. And it's that easy. So then obviously you would save that as a separate file. So I don't know, Twinkle story plan, for example, just so you know what it is. That will save, and then you could share that. So it's really quick and easy. I am in the process of doing a video about how to do that. It's just we're a bit slammed with webinars and staff training at the moment, so that is currently in my video editing software ready to be rendered and put on YouTube. So hopefully, can they word process? Yes. So as soon as that is in J2 PDF, now they can click anywhere and add anything. So they can use all of the tools that they have in J2E5. So they could use speech to text, they can add photos into that. So just to show you, I can add photos, I can record sound. This is my story plan. They can type, so it might be, I don't know, an ogre in my story. It might be a bridge or a castle. There we go. And you hit save, and that will save all of that text on top of that worksheet. So it is fully interactive, that worksheet is now. Okay. Any more questions? I'm very impressed that so many of you are hanging around. Brilliant. I'm more than happy to answer any other questions. If not, we are doing a Key Stage 2 version of this next Wednesday, I want to say. So please feel free to join us for that. So that will be slightly more advanced stuff. So we'll be going through branching databases. We'll be looking at some of the coding stuff. We'll probably look at J2E5 in a bit more depth. So please join us for that. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hope you've enjoyed it. I cannot take credit for the fireworks word ideas. That was all Mary. She's done fab, hasn't she? So yes, we'll be doing many more of those on Facebook. We'll be showcasing. She's got all sorts of ideas that she's making. So keep an eye on Facebook for some more activity ideas. I think she's got an animation that she's doing at the moment. She's doing very well. Okay, well, thank you. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope to see you for another webinar soon. Bye-bye.